Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod here to talk about Survivor Season 48, Episode 12, titled Icarus Time. Last week on Survivor, Mother Mary ate her last coconut when she was voted out of the game, leading to David holding an impromptu one-man protest. Before I dive in, links in the description to my playlist so you can catch up on the season's recaps. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. You can also use my link to binge Survivor by trying Paramount Plus for free. But let's dive into it. The final six get back to camp, and Mitch tells us he's been planning to make a move and now's the time. But Eva has other plans. She wants to take She, Joe, Kyle, and Shaheen to the final four. In the morning, this alliance meets up to decide which of Camilla or Mitch they want to pick off, and Kyle is once again considering turning on this group, telling us he finally wants to start playing with his head, not his heart. Oh, a frog! They get tree mail that they'll have an arm strength challenge. Shaheen is pissed. He says his legs are museum worthy, and he's upset he's got to keep those things put away. Skies out, thighs out, baby. Mitch approaches Shaheen, telling Shaheen that Joe is playing the best game, and they have to take a shot, but this doesn't work because Shaheen is convinced that he himself is playing the best game. Kyle and Camilla touch base to discuss their options. Camilla is down to play hard here, but Kyle is still seeming to play with his heart, not wanting to turn on Joe and Eva. They pull up to their reward challenge in the rain, where they'll be hanging on handholds on an angled board, moving down to smaller, tougher handholds. As it goes on, the player who lasts the longest wins. For the reward, they're playing for a trip to the sanctuary. Jeff explains they'll be having burgers with all the fixins, a night at the sanctuary, and their letters from home. Jeff seriously must have gotten a talking to from production after fried chicken and waffles, because he doesn't moan in ecstasy once during this food description. And he said cheesecake. They get started. Shaheen is struggling from the start, saying he has a ganglion cyst. Camilla's having fun, pretending to sleep and snore. Eventually, they make them put their legs straight to make this so difficult, activating my pet peeve, a rushed endurance challenge. Camilla instantly falls after this change, followed by Mitch, Eva getting disqualified, Joe, and it all comes down to Shaheen and Kyle. Shaheen wins this despite not being able to use his legs of steel and, ooh, a dive. And
A little kiss. I like that.
Shaheen is happy he can get a letter from his mom. They have a special bond over Survivor. Shaheen chooses Joe
A little kiss. I like that.
and also chooses Kyle to join him at the sanctuary, sending the rest of the losers home with no love. The Shaheen show continues at the sanctuary with detailed commentary about the food and a big open mouth laugh with a mouthful of food. What a treat for the viewer at home. They get their letters and get emotional. Imagine getting a letter from home and realizing your loved one wrote it with ChatGPT. Joe's son wrote him a handwritten letter saying he's proud of him and he's the bravest dad. And Joe finally shares the story of his sister who he lost to domestic violence very recently, telling the others he fought with her on the phone the night before she died, and he struggles with it ever since. This is a sad story, I feel for Joe. Back at camp, Mitch is having a BF that Shaheen chose Joe for the reward and calls Shaheen a knucklehead for fueling Joe. Eva is bored. She thinks Camilla and Mitch are a real snooze. She misses her boilies. Back at the reward, Shaheen is itching to play the game. He wonders if him playing right now would be go time or Icarus time. Oop, he said the thing. But he means that playing too hard would be flying too close to the sun. He tries to scheme with Kyle, saying the best move right now would be taking a shot at Eva. This felt Icarus timey. Kyle tells us he sees Shaheen's scheming and disloyalty as potential justification to turn on Shaheen. The next day, reward players get back to camp, and Kyle brings a new idea to Camilla, that they frame Shaheen by telling Joe that Shaheen showed Camilla an idol, with the goal of targeting Joe. Then Camilla would tell the group that Shaheen showed her the idol, reinforcing the lie. They also feel like this plan will help them look good for the jury, being able to tell the jury they tricked Joe, so they put on their acting face. Joe takes a minute alone to find a nice spot to talk to his sister, speaking out into the water, trying to get some closure and apologize to her in a really touching moment. I can't imagine doing this show and dealing with guilt and grief like that. I hope this helped him. They head to their immunity challenge. It's a doozy. They'll need to toss sandbags upwards to release a rope, then use the rope to pull themselves as they do a barrel roll, crawl under a net, get balls, and maneuver two balls through a snake track. The first player to finish wins immunity. So they get started. Eva has the hardest time with the first sandbag, having comically bad aim, tossing her sandbag all over the place, even in the background of other shots. In the barrel roll, Shaheen and his gams of steel have Jeff saying Shaheen could have been in the circus. He gets to the snake maze first, followed closely by Joe, and Camilla being Jeff's baby girl in the back. Joe gets to a lead in this. He has the eye of the tiger. He's well fed, well rested, and just communed with the other side. Nothing can stop him. He makes it look easy and wins his fourth individual immunity, dedicating the win to his sister. That's nice. Back at camp, Kyle plans to get Joe into what he calls a tizzy. He tells Joe that his boy flipped on him, telling Joe that Shaheen flashed Camilla an idol. What Kyle doesn't expect is Joe has a brain. Joe is skeptical and considers that Kyle could be lying. Joe brings all of this back to Eva. Eva seems to believe what Kyle said. Then Joe goes to Camilla, who reaffirms all the details, and she almost gets Nessa Rosed by a palm tree. The next person on Joe's tour is Shaheen. Joe interrogates Shaheen, and Shaheen doesn't give him a confession. Shaheen is confused. He tells Joe that Joe's acting like Shaheen shit in his pancakes. Now Shaheen is annoyed at Joe for acting like this for what he thinks is no reason, and Shaheen goes on a tour of his own, talking smack about Joe to anyone who'll listen. All of this make Kyle and Camilla Camilla feel like their plan is a big hit, but Joe is still skeptical that they could be getting played. So they head to tribal council, where Mitch acknowledges that he's basically rolling with the punches and never gets his way. Eva says she's rolling with her homies, and Joe is hyper focused when Camilla, Kyle, and Shaheen are speaking. When Kyle and Shaheen mention paranoia, Joe uses his stare to slow down time like Franklin from GTA 5. This was crazy editing that really made me feel like Joe was going to sniff out the lies with his stare. So they vote, no advantages are played, and when the votes are read, there's 2 votes in that thing for Mitch, from Shaheen, and shockingly Camilla, and 4 for Shaheen from everyone else. So Kyle and Camilla's plan was a hit yet again, and we lose Shaheen here, who preseason made it clear that he was a big fan, telling us in those interviews that in his real life he's like Icarus flying too close to the sun, and he drives his car into oncoming traffic in what I hoped were both metaphors. Starting on Lucky Tribe, he joins the California Girls Alliance. That was probably the height of his game. They never went to tribal, and had they, he would have been fine. At his first tribal after the swap, he gets blindsided by Kyle and Camilla and loses Thomas. You'd think he'd have a California Girl final 2 with Joe from there, but he ends up becoming a tag along for Joe and Eva for the rest of the game, somehow thinking the whole time he was the main character. He even said on the way out they voted for the best player. That was a bit delulu, but he'll be remembered most for his silly reindeer games, with the repeated singing of the background music, pandering to the audience at home in a way that made me feel like he was twisting my wrist through the screen to get me to like him, which ends up having the reverse effect. But in my life, I do appreciate silliness, and feel he really embodies the spirit of the new era, though at times that can be a bit cringe. In this last episode, he ties in the Icarus quote, showing he kind of knew he was being messy, and was just letting it happen, leading to his own demise. Kinda bummed we never saw his debate skills really come in handy. This episode was the first in a string that I was actually surprised with the outcome, the rare occasion where what was teased in the preview actually happened. I thought it was all gonna go back to Mitch, but the way Mitch was nowhere to be found in this episode made it kind of clear he wasn't going home by the end. The editing could have tried to trick us a little bit more by giving Mitch some personal content somewhere in this episode. We also got the groundwork for what could be the story of how Joe lost, as now Kyle and Camilla have successfully hoodwinked him and Eva. I just don't see a world where Kyle or Camilla make it to the final 3 and lose. They're playing a better game, and the jury seems bitter at Joe. Joe would have to go against his morals and cut Kyle and take Mitch to the final 3 for a win to happen. I just feel like Kyle has really checkmated the whole game at this point, and I expect the finale to be a 2-hour celebration of Kyle's game. We got the last season 50 fan vote. Do we want idols or not? Is anyone voting for no idols? This felt like a silly question. Idols have given us some of the best moments on every season since they were introduced. So that's all I have to say about this episode. Thanks for listening to what one Reddit user said is a recap that's not the best, but definitely short. I love these amazing reviews. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode. I'll be back next week for the finale. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Until next time, have a nice weekend. Bye.